Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Today I will be talking on this project that I did during my grad school, and it's on IUU fishing. Before I get into my project, I think it's important to have a little bit of background on me. So I am originally from Mumbai, India. I went to University of Rhode Island. I did my bachelor's in landscape architecture, which is what made me empathetic towards the environment, and I decided to pursue my master's in environmental science and management. I was awarded the Rhode Island Sea Grant Fellow for 2021, and as a result, ended up working at the Coastal Resources Center on their blue economy and sustainable aquaculture portfolio. Currently, I'm a Knauss Marine Policy Fellow working for the National Weather Service as their Interagency and Intergovernmental Policy Advisor on all things related to climate and weather forecastings and warnings. Okay, so before we talk about my project, I think it's important to talk about the class. So Hacking Proof Oceans was the first of its kind of class being offered at URI, and it is a team-based course where all of the teams were partnered with a sponsor company to tackle real-world ocean challenges with an entrepreneurial mindset. So this picture on the right, so that's my team, and we had one of the best projects in the class, and we were featured on the URI homepage, and also our project was used to promote and advertise the class, which I think is pretty exciting. Okay, so our sponsor company was Thera Mahan, and they're a world leader in autonomous maritime solutions. And on the right, those are some of the sectors that they serve. And I wanted to elaborate a little bit on autonomous vehicles. So on the left is what is called a sail drone, which is a type of autonomous vehicle, and it provides cost-effective solutions for data collection in the most remote regions of the ocean and in the harshest conditions, such as storms, hurricanes, and even tsunamis. So sail drone isn't a Thera Mahan technology, but they have very similar technology that does very similar things. So this is again our team. This is our visit to Thera Mahan. In the middle is Kevin Lopes, who is the director at Thera Mahan, and we were directly working for him. IU fishing was their passion project, and they wanted to see if they could use some of their autonomous technology to tackle that problem. He also gave us the freedom to be creative, and that is why I think our project was as successful as it turned out to be. Okay, so IU fishing is illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing that violates both national and international fishing regulations. Fish is one of the most consumed foods in the world, and that's only going to increase with population increasing along our coastal cities. The percentage of globally overexploited fish population has tripled since 1970s. Overfishing costs our global economy $10 to $23 billion annually, which makes this problem a national security threat for every country in the world. Okay, so since we were partnered with a company that deals in autonomous technology, our initial problem statement focused on using autonomous tools to make advancement in enforcement systems so that we can prevent IU fishing from happening in marine protected areas. And I'll talk more about why we chose, specifically the marine protected areas. So let's understand a little bit about what enforcement looks like for IU fishing. So we'll start on the left, where in the green box where it says monitoring. So there's two types of monitoring: passive presence, which is your autonomous vehicles. It can be satellite tracking, radars, etc. And active presence is quote unquote boots on the ground. So it can be your Coast Guard, Navy, enforcement officers, etc. And the point of monitoring basically is to create a case package. So a case package is basically evidence against the illegal activity that was happening. And once you have this case package, you will submit it to the courts, and the court, depending on the evidence, will take a legal action, depending if it's fining or suspension. That depends on the case. However, information from passive monitoring, can sometimes be a problem in the judicial process, and it makes the process slower. So over the course of the semester, we conducted a lot of interviews with a lot of people in the same or related field. And one of the things we realized that information from traditional monitoring, such as enforcement officers, Navy, Coast Guard, plus information from surveillance technology, such as autonomous vehicles, together make for a reliable and strong case package against the illegal fishing activity. So understanding a little bit more about what the current system looks like. So on the left, you'll see like a chart, and that's literally what the enforcement officers use currently to file a report if they suspect any illegal activity. And we interviewed one of the enforcement officer, Megan Brosnan, and she literally said that they ran out of paper once, and she had to write like numbers and like names on her hand, which, as you can tell, is not really efficient. And also, if you look at the paper, you can see the columns and boxes are very small, and you cannot fit in very detailed information. Okay, so now that we looked at enforcement and some of the autonomous technology, I think it was important for me and my team to define what area we're going to choose, because the ocean is pretty vast, and it's almost impossible to tackle IU fishing for the entire globe, at least in just one semester. So here are some numbers you can see. It talks about the number of marine protected areas, the percentage of ocean that is protected, and you can see 2.8% of the ocean is really protected fully or highly from fishing impacts, which is not that big of a percentage. So based on our conversations and interviews, we decided that we would expand our definition of a region from marine protected areas to also include closed fisheries areas, which is the exclusive economic zone, and there are problems with encroachment from trawlers and commercial fishers in that area. So now that we had a better idea of our region, we had to focus on a pilot location. So we looked at a few different locations. On the left, you can see is Gulf of Guinea, which is the west coast of Africa, and they do have trouble with encroachment from trawlers in their closed fisheries areas. However, there's some other issues with smuggling and trafficking as well, which we didn't really want to get into, so we decided not to choose that location. With South China Sea, there was some geopolitical boundary overlap, which we decided for the sake of our class and project wasn't the best location. And then, so finally we decided we would choose Ecuador and Galapagos Island as our pilot location. And this slide talks more about why Galapagos Island. So first, Mahan is already working with other organizations and is involved in Galapagos Island with similar work. Nico Gabor, who's actually from National Fisheries Institute in Ecuador, we conducted an interview with him, and he told us that Ecuador was handed the yellow card by the EU for not taking enough measures to combat their IU fishing. So there is pressure on the government to do better. Then there's also a proposal for a mega MPA, which was announced at COP26 in 2021. The US Coast Guard and DoD also cooperate with Ecuador to fight against IU fishing in the region. So you can see there's already partnerships and collaborations. And as mentioned earlier, Galapagos has already much of the infrastructure that will be required to combat IU fishing, which will ultimately be beneficial for our project. Okay, so then our final problem statement, we pivoted from using autonomous technology to how can modern technology simplify and streamline data collection and storage to build successful case packages against illegal fishing in protected and closed fisheries areas. Okay, so our team, we decided what we call in the class, we would call it minimum viable product, or the final product for this class. So we decided to create a company called ICU, and the ultimate goal of the company would be to help enforcement agencies use real-time and historical IU fishing data to modernize their patrolling, and reporting, thus making enforcement more effective. So within ICU, we are providing 2 services. So the first service is IC, which is basically an app which will help build simple and effective digital case packages. And the emphasis is on digital here. So this is a prototype I created, with my team, just envisioning what the app would look like. And some of the things that we wanted to make sure with this app was that it was affordable, that it was customizable based on partner needs, it was available in different languages, and that it would also have an offline mode. So if you're on the high seas and there isn't great internet connection, you'll still be able to fill out the report. And once you get internet connection, once you're back on the land, the report will be backed up into the cloud. So that way it's saved and you don't lose it. Also, another thing, so this type of apps, this has been done before, not specifically for IUU fishing, but there have been similar apps created to track certain species of fish for recreational fishing. So it's nothing new, but based on the conversations that we had with a bunch of different enforcement officers, they said that taking photos and videos while filing at the report was also important. So we made sure to include that, and there was also space to add any additional notes. Okay, so this is our second service, which is CU, and it is our unified data platform. So our idea is to collect data from different resources, such as like satellites, from NGOs, radars, and put it into this unified data platform using AI to synthesize that data, create this customizable and interactive dashboard. And so this slide is important. I think it talks about how our 2 services tie in together. So we will start here on the right. So data from satellites, acoustic sensors, radars, NGOs, all of it will get feed into our CU, which is our unified data platform, and using AI to synthesize all of that data will create a customizable and interactive dashboard. This dashboard will be displayed in the monitors in the control center room, and whenever there is an activity happening, the alert will be sent by the person on our IC app. The alert will be timestamped and geo-referenced so that officers know exactly where to go. Once they reach the location, they'll fill out the digital report on our app. So all of the information from the report plus the data from all of these different resources, again, gets feedback into our unified data platform. And every time data is added, it's going to get more accurate and give you better results. And yeah, again, it will create the dashboard based on all of the available information, and the loop kind of continues. It's important also to highlight the fact here that both of our services are independent of each other. That's why we wanted to make IC, which is our app, affordable to all of our customers. However, CU, our second service, since it is data is valuable, it can be expensive. So that is an additional service that you would have to buy in. But again, working with the customers, see what works best, we can definitely figure something out. Okay, so just some logistical things about deployment. Research is important, making sure the area, making sure what the needs of the customers are, based on all of the research and customization, then we'll roll out our first service. IC will provide training. It'll be customizable and it will be updated over time based on the current fishing regulations and laws. Same for CU, we'll roll out CU as our second service, again, just customizable and will be updated over time. Some of the features, so what we're trying to do with our company is modernize current paper-based systems. Electronic records are more efficient and easier to keep a track of. It will be fed with, the app will be fed with past fishing, database of past fishing violations. Again, it will have an offline mode. It will have the ability to take photos, videos, and notes from the app. We'll be using AI to synthesize our data to create a customizable dashboard. Data security was also important to us, and to make sure that the users only see the data that they're supposed to. Again, it will be customizable, constantly updated based on the most current laws and regulations. Some of the ways in how we're going to achieve our missions or track it is increased by looking at increased number of filed reports, increased fine revenue, interagency data sharing, increased speed and efficiency of successful report building, real-time patrol technical assistance if required. Some of the key takeaways, each marine protected area or each zone within the ocean has its own unique needs and its unique culture. It's important to work with the customers to understand their needs and ensure that all parties feel ownership. Important to be aware of local laws and ensure that data will lead to successful litigation. And besides enforcement, I think it's also important to create changes at the behavioral level so we can, by using citizen science, so we can prevent IUU fishing from happening before it, actually even happens. Okay, this is my last slide, and some of the conclusion I would say is IUU fishing is a complex problem. There are multiple layers to it. Climate change is responsible, is impacting a lot of it. Climate change, because of climate change, species are being driven to extinction, which forces the fisher folks to move into deeper waters. And with a lack of proper equipment, they are risking their lives. Having said that, again, their livelihood depends on fishing, so they are going to do it regardless of what the conditions are. That is why it is important to create solutions that do not negatively affect anybody, and therefore it is so important to incorporate social sciences from the start, so all of the parties are on the same page in order to create and maintain sustainable fishing, but also sustainable fishing communities. Okay, thank you for listening, and that was all. I'll take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Monica. I really appreciate your presentation. Audience, we've actually lots of time for questions, about 11 minutes. So if you have a question, please go ahead and type it in the questions chat box, and I will read them to our speaker. I also want to encourage you, before we start with the questions, to download Monica's presentation, which is, again, under the handouts tab in the control panel. And if you know someone who might be interested in Monica's work, encourage them to watch this recording. I'll upload the video in just a few hours to the NOAA Central Library YouTube channel. So Monica, we have our first question.
Yeah.
This person says, it's really interesting to see all of the technological advances used in this space. What do you foresee in the future developing to help streamline things even further?
So that's a good question. And obviously, there is so much technology that's constantly being developed, updated. And I mentioned this a lot during my presentation, but it's really important to work with your customers, like whose needs are you trying to fulfill? Like, what are they gaining out of this? So depending on where you're working, who you're working with, the solutions can look very different. And technology sometimes can be like this Western idea. And if you go into communities, indigenous communities, and try to enforce technology on them, sometimes that's not the best way to do it. So it's really about incorporating social science with this and making sure you're talking to your customers, making sure you're giving them what you need. And it's not just that we have this amazing technology and it's going to solve all your problems, because, that's not usually how that works. And there have been a lot of great papers written on using social science and how communities work together to protect and preserve their MPAs. So, yeah. I hope that answered it in some way.
I think so, definitely. Still waiting for another question. We'll give it a second because there is a delay. But again, I appreciate your presentation today. A second question just came in. Okay. This one asks, how could this tie into broader marine spatial planning efforts?
Very interesting. And, I feel like IUU fishing is, as I mentioned, it's like a global problem. It's not just happening in one place, it's kind of all over. How does it tie in to the bigger problems? Well, I would answer this question with, I mentioned it in one of my slides where they have this proposal for a mega MPA, which was at a COP26 conference. So, things like that, I think being more mindful of how this can be incorporated into other projects, because, I mentioned this towards the end, IU fishing, it's not just the fish that are being impacted, but it's also communities and a lot of, other things that are directly and indirectly related to it. But yeah, it definitely has a lot of implications on like a broader level because it is a problem of that scale.
Thank you. This next question asks, it says, I really like the neighborhood watch citizen reporting concept. Are there currently any other ways for fishers to report IUU to local law enforcement?
I am sure there are community efforts that are being led, and I have, myself read papers on how social science, citizen science is being used at the community level to tackle this problem. I'm sorry, can you tell me, can you read the question again?
I unfortunately already archived it. I apologize. So yeah, that's okay. We can move on to the next one, and to the person who asked that question, we can forward that to Monica afterwards.
I think it was about social, if there are other social science efforts that are being led. There are. I don't know about all of the efforts that are happening in the world, but I'm sure if you even Google it, I'm sure you'll get a lot of answers to that question.
This next comment says, very interesting work. On the governance side of things, has there been any coordination with the government of Ecuador or the Marine Law Enforcement Agency of Ecuador to ensure the product meets their needs and is allowable from the legal perspective? For example, in other locations, it must take a change in legislation to allow the use of the app in judicial cases. Thank you.
Yes. So during the course of our entire semester, we were supposed to conduct about 8 interviews every week. People from similar fields. Okay, just. Oh, sorry about that.
Okay.
So Ecuador, and this was in my slide. So interviewing all of the people, right? And none of us were experts in IU fishing, and it was a learning process for all of us. And by the end of the semester, we spoke to Nico Gabor, and I mentioned him in my slides, and he's actually from the National Fisheries Institute in Ecuador. And talking to him, I think it was one of our best interviews because we actually got to see, what the conditions are with IU fishing in Ecuador. And you're right, with IU fishing, the region is really important. Your partners are really important, what their needs are. Unfortunately, we were, almost done with the semester by the time we realized, Ecuador is the one place that we're going to target. But if we are to, ever take this project further, I think it will be working with the National Fisheries Institute or the Ecuador government. And as I mentioned, there is pressure on the Ecuadorian government to combat their IU fishing. So yeah, there's definitely opportunity for that.